If you've ever loved someone who kept running from you, not because they didn't care, but because they were afraid to be seen, this is for you. Because sometimes the people who seem the strongest are just the ones most terrified of love. You know, one of the most interesting things about human nature, especially when it comes to avoidant attachment, is how deeply people crave control when they feel emotionally unsafe. Avoidants live by one main rule: don't depend on anyone. They tell themselves that needing love, trusting someone, or showing emotion makes them weak. So, they build walls. They step back. They convince themselves that keeping distance gives them power. But the truth is, that illusion of control is the very first thing that breaks when they lose someone who truly loved them. At first, it doesn't happen in a dramatic or loud way. It's quiet. It starts with small thoughts and excuses. They tell themselves, "I just needed space," or "it wasn't right," or "they were too much for me." Those words become their armor, a shield that keeps them from feeling guilt or facing the emotional storm they've been avoiding their entire lives. But that illusion of control doesn't last forever, because real love, genuine, safe, steady love, has its own frequency. It fills a place in your heart that nothing else can replace. And when it's gone, that emptiness doesn't just sound different, it feels different. The silence starts to echo. Control feels intoxicating to the avoidant mind. It gives them a false sense of safety in a world that once made them feel helpless. Many avoidants grew up in homes where emotions were dismissed, punished, or ignored. They learned that showing feelings meant danger. So as adults, they seek comfort in what feels predictable: logic, space, independence. But here's the paradox. The very moment they think they're in control is the moment they've already lost it. Because emotional control isn't real control, it's avoidance. And avoidance always ends up costing more than it protects. There comes a moment I call the emotional mirror moment. It's when the avoidant finally sees the reflection of their own actions. They begin to notice that the people who used to care have stopped trying. The messages stop coming. The energy that once surrounded them has vanished. Not because someone turned against them, but because that person finally turned toward themselves. That's when the avoidance illusion of control begins to crumble. They start realizing that the silence they once used as a weapon has now become their punishment. In psychology, this is called the disconfirmation phase, when the story you've been telling yourself to survive finally collides with the truth of reality. The avoidant always believed, if I pull away, I'm in charge. I can choose when and how to connect. But reality answers back, you didn't control love, you broke it. And that truth doesn't whisper, it screams. It breaks through all the logic, pride, and excuses. Because real love leaves a mark, not just in your memory, but in your nervous system. You can't simply detach from that. You can distract yourself, you can suppress it, you can pretend you don't care. But your body remembers, your heart remembers. The most ironic part is that when they finally feel safe enough to reflect on what happened, it's often because of the love they once pushed away. That's what makes it so tragic. Real love was the one thing that could have healed their fear, yet that same fear convinced them to destroy it. So when that illusion finally collapses, they're left standing in front of the wreckage of something sacred. And for the first time, they can't hide behind logic or cold reasoning. They can't explain their pain away, they have to feel it. So if you've ever found yourself on the other side of this, waiting, wondering if they'll ever realize what they lost, the answer is yes, they will. But not when you're still trying to show them, not when you're still available, because as long as you're standing there, they don't have to face the emptiness they created. The lesson only hits when they finally turn around and realize there's nothing left to control, no one left to pull back from. That's the moment real growth begins. Not for you, because you already grew when you chose to heal, but for them. It's when they start to feel what connection truly means, when they start to see that love doesn't make them weak, it makes them human. And all those years of running, all those excuses and walls were never about avoiding others. They were about avoiding themselves. But here's the quiet truth. Love doesn't vanish just because someone was too afraid to hold it. It remains in the lessons, in the self-awareness, in the strength you built from the pain. The avoidant may one day try to come back, not necessarily to rekindle what was lost, but to understand what they couldn't feel before. They might not say it out loud, but inside, they'll know. They didn't lose control. They lost connection. And maybe, just maybe, that realization becomes their first real moment of emotional freedom. Not the kind built from walls or silence, but the kind built from truth. The kind that teaches that vulnerability isn't weakness. It's the highest form of courage. Because love, real love, isn't something you control, it's something you allow. They realize it the moment your silence stops being a waiting room and turns into a clear boundary. That's when their illusion of control begins to fall apart, and they finally face the truth they've been avoiding for years. Because the second an avoidant person loses control is the same moment they understand what that control has really cost them: real love. And that kind of realization can't be undone. It shifts something inside them permanently. The lesson is simple. You don't need to chase closure. Their breaking point becomes your closure. One of the hardest things to understand about avoidant people is how delayed their emotions are when it comes to loss. They don't feel the pain when the breakup first happens. They don't cry right away. They don't sink into sadness or regret in those early days. On the outside, they appear calm, collected, even peaceful. They tell themselves they made the right decision, that you were too emotional, too demanding, or that they simply needed space. And for a while, they believe that story. But deep underneath that calm surface lies something else entirely: emotional shutdown. What looks like peace is actually numbness. It's not healing, it's survival mode. You see, when someone with an avoidant attachment style feels emotionally cornered or vulnerable, their brain treats it like danger. Their body reacts as if they're under threat. Instead of fighting or running, they escape by disconnecting emotionally. They don't stop caring because they're heartless. They stop caring because feeling deeply feels unsafe to them. That numbness is their protection, the emotional armor they've worn since childhood to guard themselves against rejection or abandonment. But emotional shutdown never lasts forever. The human heart can only suppress truth for so long before it starts to surface again. Eventually, something small breaks through, a song that reminds them of you, a familiar scent, a memory, or a quiet evening when their phone doesn't light up anymore. Suddenly, the silence they once found comforting becomes heavy and unbearable. That's when the delayed emotional reaction begins to unfold. They start to remember, not in a romantic way at first, but in fragments. Flashbacks of small, vivid details they ignored before. The sound of your laughter, the way you understood them when they couldn't explain their feelings, the way your presence helped them feel grounded and safe. What starts to hurt isn't just the loss of you, it's the realization of what they destroyed without even noticing. That's when the numbness turns into real pain. And that kind of pain is different. It doesn't hit all at once. It builds slowly, creeping into their quiet moments, confusing them, breaking through the emotional walls they built. Because they spent so long convincing themselves they didn't need love, that they were better off alone, that when love finally disappears, it leaves behind nothing but emptiness. They once thought detachment was strength, They believed emotional independence meant freedom, but they eventually learned that isolation isn't freedom. It's loneliness dressed up as control. At this stage, something fascinating happens inside them, something psychologists call emotional incongruence. It's when your emotions no longer match the story you tell yourself. The avoidant has always told themselves, "I'm fine being alone." But now their heart whispers, "You're not." That conflict between what they believe and what they actually feel becomes unbearable. It forces them to face the truth. They didn't avoid pain by walking away. They only delayed it. What makes it even more difficult is that by the time they're ready to reach out again, the person they pushed away has already healed. You've rebuilt your confidence. You've stopped trying to prove your worth. You've stopped chasing and learned peace within yourself. That's when the avoidance starts to crumble from the inside. They see clearly that the person they kept at a distance was the only one who made them feel emotionally safe, even if they could never admit it. What they begin to experience next is what could be called reversal empathy. For the first time, they truly feel what they once made you feel: ignored, unseen, disconnected. The same silence they once used to punish you now becomes their punishment. The distance they thought would protect them now isolates them. And that's when genuine regret starts to rise, not because they suddenly became wiser or emotionally mature, but because pain finally becomes louder than their pride. It's in those quiet, lonely nights when they realize what they lost wasn't just a person. It was the only genuine connection that ever saw past their walls. They remember how your patience once gave them safety they didn't know how to accept. How your love wasn't trying to control them, but to understand them. And they see that what they called freedom was really fear. They were never running from you. They were running from the parts of themselves that couldn't handle being seen. Meanwhile, you've learned something they still haven't, that silence isn't always a waiting room. Sometimes silence is healing. It's peace, not punishment. You've learned to live without needing their validation. You've stopped confusing their distance for depth. You've stopped expecting broken people to love you the way you loved them. And though they may finally see your worth, it's usually too late. Because by the time they wake up to what they lost, you're no longer standing in the same place. You've outgrown the waiting. You've outgrown the pain. You've outgrown needing them to understand. Their story may circle back, but you've moved on to a chapter they can't follow. And while they sit in the silence they created, trying to make peace with their choices, you've found something far greater, peace that doesn't depend on anyone else. They'll always remember the one who saw them clearly and loved them anyway. They'll remember that their silence once meant power, but now it only echoes loss. And you'll remember that your silence was never weakness. It was the moment you reclaimed yourself. You see, the human heart has its own built-in warning system. You can silence it for a while. You can bury it under distractions, pretend it isn't there, but eventually it demands to be heard. And when the emotional alarm of avoidance finally goes off, it's not soft or subtle. It's an overwhelming wave of everything they've been running from: love, loss, fear, longing. They begin to realize that emotional avoidance doesn't erase feelings, it only delays them until they grow too heavy to carry. In truth, this is what suffering really is: the fight between avoidance and reality. Every time we choose comfort instead of confrontation, we stretch our pain a little further. Avoidance lives stuck in that tension until life forces them to face the truth. Because there comes a point when the pain of staying disconnected becomes stronger than the fear of being vulnerable. That's when the breaking point arrives, the moment they finally see that love was never their enemy. It was their fear of losing control that was. And here's what you should remember: their delayed emotions don't erase the pain you felt. You experienced everything in real time, because you were open, you were present, you didn't hide from your heart. That's strength, that's courage, and that's exactly why your healing will come faster than theirs. They may look calm while you fall apart, but the irony is that they begin to fall apart once you've already risen. That's the cycle of awakening for the avoidant. When the numbness fades and the truth begins to sink in, they realize that real connection isn't suffocating, it's what keeps you alive. That real emotional safety doesn't come from control, it comes from trust, and that the love they ran from was the only thing that could have set them free from their own emotional cage. This is what psychologists often call the mirror stage of avoidance. It's when everything they've been running from starts reflecting back at them. Every time they pushed you away, every time they shut down instead of opening up, every time they mistook your care for control, it all returns like a film they can't stop. And this time, they can't make excuses. They can't say you were too emotional, too needy, or too much. Because now, with distance and perspective, they finally see you clearly. They see that you were patient, understanding, consistent. You weren't demanding, they were projecting. You didn't smother, they avoided. The mirror doesn't only show them what they did, it shows them why they did it. Now, here's where the deeper meaning of this moment appears. Because self-awareness, as powerful as it is, doesn't automatically heal a person. Awareness is only the first step, and often the most painful one. The avoidant begins to see that all the things they did to protect themselves, detachment, control, withdrawal, were the very things that destroyed what they needed most. They see the cruel irony. In trying to avoid rejection, they created it. In trying to protect their heart, they broke it. And this realization doesn't hit all at once. It comes in waves. They remember every time you tried to talk and they brushed it off. Every time you asked for comfort and they went cold. Every time you stayed kind, even while hurting. Moments that once felt small now become heavy with meaning, symbols of their self-sabotage. They finally realize that love never demanded perfection. It only wanted presence. But they were too busy protecting their pride to show up. What's even deeper is that this stage isn't just about missing you. It's about facing what they've become. The mirror forces them to see that avoidance has consequences, that silence carries weight, that emotional distance doesn't make them strong. It makes them disconnected from life itself. For the first time, they start to question what safety really means. Because how safe are you if you're emotionally alone? How free are you if every bond ends in fear? There's a moment in every avoidant story when the silence they created finally turns against them. It doesn't happen right away, because avoidants always think they have time. They believe love will wait, that no matter how far they retreat, the person who loved them will still be there, patient and forgiving, ready to start over. But life doesn't work that way. Love doesn't stand still while you hide from it. And when an avoidant finally realizes that the person they pushed away isn't waiting anymore, that's when everything inside them collapses. That's the awakening. What makes that moment powerful is that it's not about rejection, it's revelation. Until now, they've lived under the false idea that distance means safety, that control means strength. But when they finally turn around and see that love has moved on, that illusion breaks apart. They realize that in trying to protect themselves from pain, they created the very loneliness they feared most. It's not that they stop loving you, it's that they finally feel how deeply they did. And the tragedy is, they feel it too late. This is when everything they've been avoiding catches up. The truth that love doesn't wait for those who take it for granted. You can't pause connection and expect it to stay alive. Relationships are living things. They need care, energy, and attention. When an avoidant withholds those, they aren't buying time, They're starving the bond. So when they finally come back, the soil they once ignored has already turned to dust. Psychologically, this is when the avoidant's emotional walls begin to crumble. The parts of them that once felt strong and self-contained now feel hollow. The independence they used to glorify now feels like emptiness. They start to notice the loneliness in moments that once felt peaceful. The long nights, the mornings with no messages, the silence that once felt calm but now feels haunting. They see people laughing, connecting, moving on, and something inside whispers, "I could have had that." It's a quiet, stubborn realization that comes with finality. What follows is deep reflection. They begin asking questions they never asked before. Why did I pull away? What was I so scared of? Why did I think love was dangerous? And if they're brave, they trace the answers back to childhood, the moments when being vulnerable felt unsafe, when affection meant rejection, when they were taught that love always leads to loss. And through that, they realize that fear was never protecting them. It was imprisoning them. Fear has been their silent shadow all along, fear of being controlled, abandoned, or seen. It pretends to be independence, but it's really self-protection in disguise. And when they finally see that, they realize something even deeper. The freedom they chased was never about being alone. It was about being unafraid. But the only way to be unafraid in love is to stay, to feel, to be seen. That's the great paradox of the avoidant awakening. By the time they realize love was never the threat, the person who could have taught them that lesson is already gone. The empath, the grounded partner, the one who waited, they've evolved. They've learned that self-respect isn't about proving worth to someone blind to it. It's about walking away when you finally see your value isn't up for debate. Because here's the quiet truth most never say aloud. When you destroy real love, you don't just lose a person. You lose the part of yourself that can give and receive love at all. That loss doesn't fade. It reshapes you. It makes you question everything you once believed about safety. And if you're the one who loved the avoidant, understand this. You were never meant to save them from themselves. Your purpose was to show them what safety felt like, even for a moment. Once you did that, your role was complete. The rest of their healing belongs between them and the mirror. That's what the breaking point really is. Not punishment, but awakening. It's life tearing down the illusion that you can outrun love, control connection, or avoid pain without losing joy. And when that truth finally sinks in, it changes everything. Because love doesn't disappear when you run. It stays just long enough to teach you, then it moves on. And when it's gone, the silence left behind becomes your greatest teacher.